Okay.
All righty. I'd like to call to order the study session meeting for the Gateway Board of School Directors for Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. Will you please rise for pledge of allegiance? Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we go into roll call, we would like to announce that we were in executive from about 6 to 8 regarding litigation and personnel. So as a public, do apologize for the long executive meeting. Ms. Isha, whenever you're ready for roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Cerrucci,
Here.
Mrs. Delaney,
Here.
Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mr. Gottman,
Here.
Mr. McIntyre,
Here.
Miss Mungo,
Here.
Mr. Ritter,
Here, are you able to hear me okay?
Mrs. Warney,
Here.
and Mr. Williams.
Here.
John, are you able to hear me okay? I'm gonna switch this.
Bonnie, do you hear John talking to you?
You know what, very faintly. I'm sorry. No, I don't hear him very well.
Wait a minute. He's changing mics.
All right, you look, Mike's a little bit bigger, hear me now? You able to hear me now, Bonnie?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Very good, thanks.
All righty. So we're going to start off with comments from residents on agenda items.
We did have one, oh, sorry.
All right, we have one comment to the microphone first.
Cheryl Poison-Cargill. I know you've been discussing this already, and I know everybody is frustrated, but we're going to talk about this again. Under section G, number 1. On June 1st, am I mistaken, or are you not having a budget and staff discussion meeting? Is that what's supposed to be happening? It's June 1st, yes. June 1st, is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, why are you discussing any staff differences now? Why is this not part of the comprehensive discussion on June 1st? Second of all, this is going to involve a change in administrative structure. So this should be a more comprehensive discussion, and I think the public has a right to know about that, because when you're adding additional administrative people at 6 figures, because I had to do research, since no one seemed to know here what the job description was going to look like or what the salary is going to look like, I took it upon myself, as always, to research it and look at other districts. So this is a 6-figure administrative position, the equity director, and some people here, it's going to impact their jobs and how you have the administration configured at this moment. I would like to know, since I'm paying the taxes, how that's going to impact administration, what that's going to look like, what the cost is going to be, what the job description is going to be, how you're going to determine in 4 years, how effective that's going to be. And the other thing I want to know, I know I'm probably not supposed to say this or know this, but I do know this state sent back to you some proposals about staffing. You sent them some material and information that they wanted, and they in turn sent stuff back to you. I would like to see that. Do I need to submit a right to know request to get that information? I think the public has a right to see that before you make any staffing changes. Now, I'm not big on the state coming in and telling you what to do. I'm not. However, once in a while, it's nice to know what they're thinking. And I would really like to have that discussion, because I think that's only fair to the taxpayers to know what they're looking at and why they're looking at it, so that we can all determine where the money should be spent. 3,400 kids, all of them, can I emphasize this? All of them have gone through their lives upside down because of COVID. Every single last one of them. So I would rather see you do an assessment of all the positions. That's why I want to see what the state said before you add another administrative position that's going to cost us 6 figures. Because I see administrators already sitting here. And I don't understand why they aren't capable of doing this. Because every place I see this happening in other districts are like Philadelphia, 200,000 students in the county of county of Philadelphia. We have 3,400. So as a taxpayer, I want to know where my money is being spent. So I'm asking you those questions. I think they're valid. I think it's a conversation for June 1st. I don't think this should be on there now. That should be discussed at June 1st when you're talking about budgets and staffing. That's just my opinion. I'm not letting up on this. I think there's some people in this room that are wrong. They have never worked with children. And I'm looking at 3,400 distinct and unique individual learners who have been impacted for the last year from COVID. And we have to figure out what to do to help them all of them. If that means more paraprofessionals, so be it. Whatever it's going to take, that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
All righty. Any other comments for residents in-house? Okay. Ms. Tisha, I do know you said we have one who submitted an email.
Yes, we had one email from a Frederick Carlson.
Yes, I have it up. This one comes from Mr. Frederick Carlson.
Ryan.
So this one here, I'll just read the email really quick here. I disagree strongly with the need for this expensive administrative position that is committing possibly $500,000 over the next 4 years. For something that has not adequately been measured or determined as a need, our district is committed to helping students perform their best ability. My family has experience utilizing existing resources to help our students' achievement. The school district budgets existing expenses related to special ed, last chance stay in school programs, and programs encouraging teacher willingness to do extra help. And there are networks of volunteer tutoring. All these seem to be the way the district can address students whose achievement is lacking. These are the kind of hands-on performance-based measurable programs that can help students. The resolution for a huge hiring decision put forward by Mr. McIntyre addresses nothing tangible other than vague performance gaps that have not been measured at all. I do not think such programs have ever come close to succeeding, and they become political wedge at point that further divide our student populations and keep personal accountability away from the students that are fully capable of working hard to achieve, and the teachers who have the skills to help these students improve. The resolution is so abstract as to boggle the rationale mind. Although dollars and cents impact the budget, district budget is easily measurable, the perceived improvements in performance across large numbers of students are unmeasurable, and thus the performance as such an equity director is not measurable. Wouldn't this be more prudent to wait until a budget analysis at the June meeting at the very least? I highly suggest that the resolution is deeply flawed in its timing before the annual budget and staffing reviews in June at the very least, and that the fact that the efficiencies in the current program are not identified should discourage the school board from voting for all this ill-conceived measure. Post-COVID data is not available yet concerning our own district, but according to a study from Harvard, the division caps across all segments of the 2019-2020 seniors and the 2021 seniors raise enough alarms that will require all hands on deck. Approach to getting back basics, raising achievement for all students. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. All right. I don't have any more emails regarding agenda items. So we're gonna move on to number 5 with our guest speakers. And this is regarding a board resolution at the end. So I'm gonna let Mrs. Warning take over from here.
Yes, thank you, Brian, Mr. Kaufman. I have 2 guests here this evening. Mr. Marks, excuse me for, I hope I don't mess up your name, Mr. Scaramuzzi and Mrs. Kathy Bishop, our school nurse here at Gateway. I was approached regarding this program that they have on Vision to Learn, and I wanted Mr. Mark Scaramuzzi to speak a little bit about it. And are you on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can explain your program.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for having me here this evening. I know it's been a long day for all of us, I'm sure. So known to be long-winded, so I'll try to keep this fairly short, but certainly happy to answer any questions. And you know, Kathy can certainly share her perspective as well. But Vision to Learn is a national nonprofit that provides free eye exams and glasses to kids in underserved communities via mobile vision clinics. So we operate in 12 states. We've served over 300,000 students nationwide. And here in the Pittsburgh area, we've been operating since 2018 Currently work with about 30 school districts and charter schools across the region, and have served about 7,000 students. You know, about 2 million students every single day wake up and walk into a school or log onto a computer this year, and don't have the glasses that they need to be successful. We estimate there's about 30,000 kids in the Pittsburgh metro region who need glasses and don't have them. So our work is really based upon a very simple premise: if you can't see, you can't learn. So by being able to leverage our mobile clinics, we're able to bring resources directly to the schools, provide vision care to students who may otherwise not be receiving it, whether that's due to access barriers, transportation, insurance. That there's a number of reasons why students who may benefit from glasses for one reason or another don't have them. So by being able to partner with schools and bring resources directly to the school, where at least in a non-COVID year, we know the kids will be, we're able to make sure the kids who need the resources are able to have what they need to be successful in school. Just to share a little bit of information with you guys before I kind of jump quickly into a quick overview of kind of what we do and how we do it. So right before COVID hit, we completed a 3-year study with Johns Hopkins University and the Baltimore City School District that showed that students who received glasses through Vision to Learn in a 3-year controlled study, studied amongst their peers and control groups, if the study found that students who received glasses received about the equivalency of 1 month of learning time compared to similar groups of peers who didn't have glasses. For students that were in the lowest quartile, so that's going to be kids in the lowest 25%, which will include your students who may have an IEP, students who may be in special education classes, et cetera. Those gains were actually equivalent to about 3 months of seat time. So we think the timing is very exciting. Kathy and I had been kind of talking about this program in early 2020 before COVID kind of put everything on pause for a lot of folks. But we think the timing is really critical for students as we look to get back into the classroom. We look to start strong in the fall, that the kids have the resources they need to be successful. So the way our model works is school screenings are completed to identify what students may have a vision issue and may require that follow-up care. From there, we'll identify what students would consent, and families would consent to services. And once we know how many students there are to be seen in a building or a district, we'll schedule dates to come out with our mobile unit. It's a modified Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, so similar to the Amazon delivery vans you guys see driving around. And it is an eye doctor's office on wheels. So all we need is somewhere to park, plug in, and we're ready to go for the day. We've modified all of our protocols, since COVID to ensure for social distancing. Our staff have full PPE. We desanitize the clinic between patients to ensure the safety of our staff, the kids, and obviously the school staff as well. But on an exam day, we can typically see about 20 students right now. Pre-COVID, without some of these protocols that we've had to put in place, we're typically seeing about 25 to 30. So, as we go through the following months here and see where the world takes us, we're hoping that we may be able to, tick up a little bit further and see a few more kids per day. But the students come on the van. We do a non-dilated exam, so there's no drops, nothing invasive. That way students, don't have dilated pupils. If any of you have ever been to the eye doctor, the dilation can kind of disrupt things for you for a little bit. So, so the kids are still able to carry about their school day, but they'll come on, get an exam. If it's determined they do need glasses, they'll come back up front to the van where our optician will help them select a frame. We have a frame kit with over 100 different shapes, styles, colors. For the younger kids, we have, some rainbow ones and different clear plastics and things like that the kids really get excited about. For the older kids, I think they all pretty much tend to pick, black or clear ones, but even then we have a number of different styles in different shapes, different, fits that'll work for every child. Our goal is really to make sure that every single student that walks off has a pair of glasses they're excited about, that they want to wear, and they're going to feel confident in. At the end of the day, our tickets sent off to the lab. We typically have the glasses back about 3 to 4 weeks later. An optician will come back to the building with the glasses. We can set up in a space, have the come down and do frame adjustments and do fittings to, again, make sure we get that good fit for everyone. If glasses are too tight or too loose, as some of you may experience in your lives, they're not too comfortable. So we try to make sure we get that perfect fit for every child. From there, once the kids have the glasses, Should they get lost, broken, what have you at any point, we're more than happy to replace them at no cost again. So, that's really a critical piece for any of you who have kids or grandkids. You probably know, especially for some of the younger ones, it's not if they break, it's when they break. So we really want to make sure that we're not just getting kids glasses, but we're keeping them in glasses and making sure they have the resources to be successful. We work closely with our nurses, and I really kind of consider them the fourth member of our team in many ways at the buildings to, if there's a child who knows rough on glasses, or maybe if glasses go home on Friday, they don't always come back to school on Monday, we can make sure you guys have 2 pairs from the jump, a home pair and a school pair, or, just that spare pair ready to go in a locker in case they get broken, or what have you. So again, our work, everything we do is at no cost to the district, no cost to families. Our goal really is just to make sure that the kids have the resources they need to be successful. And I could tell you stories, the rest of the evening here about kids who, can't see 3 feet in front of their face and sometimes have never had glasses. Or in some cases, their glasses broke 3 years ago and never got replaced. So, certainly happy to answer any questions and dig in a little bit further on things, but I'll kind of pause there and be, I know you guys have had a long evening. I appreciate everyone's time.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Kathy, the nurses will still be doing the initial eye exams, correct?
Yes, the way I envision this, we will continue to do our screening on all of the students. And then the students, we will send referrals home on any student that fails. And if we do not get that referral back, then we will send out the parental consent for Vision to Learn. And so there is definitely a need in the 1920 school year. We had about 34% of our students fail their vision exam, and we only got about 3% of those referrals back. So I think this is an equity issue. I think it helps level the playing field so that all of the kids can see the computer, all of the kids can see the chalkboard. It helps us be more inclusive and more supportive to each and every one of our students. Since it's free to the district, I think it's well worth trying it and seeing how it goes. I know from myself, when I first got my glasses, I was absolutely amazed that other people could see these things that I had no idea that you didn't have to get up close to see. So I think it can make a radical difference in students' lives, and I think it's a valuable project.
Very good.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
Mark, you've impressed the board. Take the rest of the night off.
Do we need to have the students, if we do, propose this, bring this in, do we need anything from the students? Do we have all the clearances through your company that's needed to be around the students?
Yeah, so all of our staff have, all the clearances. Again, certainly, once we have everything lined up, certainly happy to provide those to whoever should have a copy of those. But yeah, we work with, again, 30 districts and charters throughout the area and have all of our clearances for our staff. And, we're out there 5 days a week supporting kids in different communities throughout the area.
Mark, this is John. One quick question. For those athletes that need like sports glasses that are like almost unbreakable, could those students get 2 pairs of glasses, one for regular use and then one for heavy duty sports use?
Certainly. Now we don't have the sport glasses that may have the band behind them or some of those things. We do have some things for younger kids. We have some kind of rubber hooks that go on behind the ears that help keep them on the face. So we're not able to do like the sport goggles and some of those things, but for some of those kiddos who sometimes can't see the ball or what have you without their glasses, sometimes they tend to break a little bit more than some other students. So we're certainly, again, happy to replace glasses as many times as we need to. And we do have some kind of creative resources available for some of the students that may be a little more active.
Yep, I think it's important because if a student just gets 1 pair and they wear that and get smacked in the head with, football or anything, now they've lost their only pair of glasses. And so to have that second pair that's designed for ruggedness, that really helps.
Yeah, we're certainly, everything we do, we really try to tailor to the specific needs of every district, every building, and every student we work with. So, certainly happy to connect with coaches or, community groups or what have you, to kind of, make sure we're cross-referencing those lists where we're able to and making sure that for those students who would be, who would benefit from that. Again, if it's somebody who, would benefit from 2 pairs, just let us know. We can get 2 pairs from the jump, or, if we need to have those replacements, because for a lot of students, typically takes, again, about 3 weeks or so for replacement glasses to come in. For some kids, that's just not an option. They can't go without glasses for that long, right? So we're certainly happy to do whatever we need to make sure each and every child has what they need to be successful.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And if we decide on this next Tuesday, Wednesday, when we vote on this, you work with Kathy, would be able to get this ready to go for the 21-22 school year?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. I really appreciate it. Mark, thanks you for finally making, we were able to connect. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it,
Kathy,
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Before they leave, does any other board members have any questions they'd like to ask them? While we have them on? No? Okay, then Mr. Scaramuzzi and Ms. Bishop, thank you so much. And we look
Thank you. Have a
forward
great
to it.
evening.
Thank you.
All righty. So now we're going to move on to section B, bills and financial reports. Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Gottman. Section B1, list of bills for the month of May 2021. Section B2, monthly financial statements for the month of April 2021. And Section B3, budget transfers for the month of May 2021. We present all 3 sections this evening for the board's review.
All right, anybody have questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to section C, items tabled. We have one this
Hi.
morning.
Yes. This is regarding the roof at Sunrise. I'm just going to ask Mr. Bob Brown. We were up there Friday on the roof. I still want to keep this tabled, but just wanted to let you know that there is things going on.
We did meet Friday, evaluated the roofs in the building that pertain to the roof. Met with 3 other colleagues from other school districts, composed a letter. They're reviewing it for their input, and we hope to have that to Dr. Short tomorrow in order to present it to all the other superintendents that are involved.
Mr. Brown, just from what you saw, is there an urgent need for the roof repair?
Yes,
And did you see inside, they were saying it was dirt. What was your thoughts, what you saw?
there's conditions that are potentially mold that could be forming. They've had it tested. They don't have mold as of yet, but there's situations that are very accommodating to black mold. They're not using all of the building right now because of that, but it's a situation with the roof leaking that is not going to fix itself.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hoffman, I would like to keep this tabled.
Okay.
Mr. Bowman, just for clarification, if we keep this table tonight, don't on the table next week, then the motion would have to be reintroduced. We passed one voting meeting. Right.
That would be.
Bruce?
Bruce?
You're worried about what if we don't pass it next week?
If we don't, if it remains tabled for 2 voting meetings.
No, it doesn't expire. It continues to pend to
Yeah.
the next board meeting.
Right to the next board meeting.
Right.
But we have to take action on it if we have a voting meeting in between.
If you have a voting meeting between next week and your regular voting meeting, it would come onto the table. If it was a voting meeting.
There's anything we come on the table next week?
It was tabled at a
If you-
voting meeting. We're now having a study session. It's remained tabled.
Yeah, it's going to remain on the table to the next voting meeting.
Right.
Does that answer the question? Because the
Yes,
question's
if you don't want
compounded.
to table it at the next meeting, then it has to be reintroduced.
No, it just automatically goes
it's
back
on
on
there.
the agenda.
You don't have to reintroduce it.
Yeah.
It doesn't die.
Right, I just wanted to get clarification.
It doesn't die. It continues. You have to dispose of it somehow.
Right, yeah.
So it continues to show up on your agenda at the next regular meeting, ad infinitum, if you went 6
Okay,
months.
so yeah, there's no shelf life.
Thank you.
Brian, I think I missed the vote when you said, is there anything else about item 6? I think I wanted to talk with Bob Brown and ask him just to give us a little bit of background about the need for some lighting updates and repairs. and-
We're not there yet.
This was the table.
Yeah, we haven't got that far yet.
We're on C.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to section D, personnel agenda. Mrs. Crump.
Thank you, Mr. Gottman. Presented for you this evening are 5 op sections. Under resignations, we have 3 listed, which will be up for next week's agenda. Under leave of absence, we have 2 that have been submitted with all the proper documentation. Under section 3 for transfers, we have 1 per the collective bargaining agreement. Under section 4 for employment, we are recommending an additional paraprofessional. That's Mahalo Dragovich, and he is also the son of Paula and Simo Dragovich, who work in the district. We are also recommending 2 additional early literacy teachers, 5 extended school year teachers, and 16 extended school year paraprofessionals. In section D, we have the motions listed for D and E. These are the 2 programs that you approved at the last meeting. We will have names to be presented next week. That was just put out to bid this week, so we don't have the names to present this evening, but they will be there for next week. And under section 5, we have the motion to accept the fact-finding report between the Gateway School District and the Gateway Education Association, PSEA/NEA, and that's to approve and accept the fact-finding report and recommendations of Ms. Miller Catula, fact finder, as issued in the matter of fact-finding by the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board, case number Act 88-214W.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Crump. Do you have any questions or comments on section D?
I do.
Yes.
Mrs. Crump, have you determined how many teachers that you will need for the summer program?
Each of the programs has different needs. As far as extended school year and the early literacy program, I spoke with those individuals today. I believe we just need 1 more teacher for ESY, but we have all the paraprofessionals that we need, and we're good with the early literacy. The other programs we're still evaluating, and we'll know more within the next week or so of what we need for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, would you, I have a question on number 5 as the head of the negotiation committee. I thought it
Yes,
was a good
ma'am.
idea for Mr. McIntyre to explain exactly what that number 5 is, for people who might not know what that is.
Thank you, Mary Beth. As most of us, everybody here knows, most of the public, I would imagine, is aware, we've been in contract negotiations since the beginning of this last year, I believe, beginning of January last year. We've been working, the teachers have been working without a contract for the duration of this current school year. I don't remember the dates, but they decided that they wanted to request a fact finder. Basically, that's a non-binding arbitration process where it's a neutral third party comes in. You look at all of the items on the contract that are in dispute. We did get some good work done before fact finding, where we had a lot of tentative agreements or TAs, and every item of the contract didn't have to go through fact finding. But the ones that were still in dispute and we hadn't agreed upon, each side basically got to make their case. The GEA, gave their proposal and their reasons behind it. The district did the same. And then the third-party fact finder made their recommendations based off of those arguments. I forget the date, but I believe, well, yesterday it became public. The fact finder report was released to the district and to the teachers
Last week.
last week. And essentially we had 5 days, I believe, to either accept or reject the results of that fact finding or the recommendations. In speaking with the rest of the board, we had unanimous support to accept the recommendations of the fact finder, and the GEA then had their opportunity to accept or reject. They decided to reject. And as a direct result of that, the actual file, the case file for the fact finder that includes our propositions or proposals, along with the GEA's proposals and the fact finding recommendations, became public record. They're available on the district website through the HR link. So, the public's welcome to view that, and you'll see what the teachers were asking for, what we were offering, what the mediator made a recommendation. Typically when you do these things, it's somewhere in the middle. And I believe the teachers now have another 5 or 10 days to either change their mind and accept, or they reject it, and then we continue on with negotiations.
Excellent summary, thank you.
I wasn't completely prepared for that, so.
It's off the cuff. Well, a lot of people look at that and say, what is this?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
There's multiple hires on here. Does anybody have a problem doing this before the June budget and staffing meeting?
Is there a reason?
I'm just asking if anybody has a problem with it.
I think that we should wait till next week.
No, I'm saying that's still before the June meeting, right?
It is, but all these positions have been budgeted for.
These are budgeted positions and some
Correct.
of them are for the
But
summer.
we don't have a problem with it, right?
No, they're not for next year's budget, Rick, they're for now.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on section D? All right, we'll move on to section E. Conferences and conventions. Dr. Short.
Mr. Garland, you should take conferences and conventions under section E.
For conferences and conventions, we have one listed for discussion tonight. Patrick McCann, AP Summer Institute, Art History online, June 14th through the 18th.
All right, questions, comments? All right, seeing that, we move on to section F. Section F tonight has two parts. We have one for action items and one for discussion. So we're going to start with the action items. Dr. Short.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Mr. Shaw, are you available?
I am available, sir.
Okay, this is your time. Do you want to take a sip of your water first?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I'll tell you what, I'll read the resolution, then I'll read and review as appropriate each of the items, each of the 4 items listed here. Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors approves and authorizes as appropriate the following items 1 through 4 as listed in section F administrative report at the study session meeting of Tuesday, May 11, 2021. Specifically, item number 1, adopt, approve the advertisement and approve the required placement on public display via the budget form PDE 2028, the proposed final general fund budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year in the amount of $87,694,000. It is further resolved the 2021-2022 fiscal year proposed final general fund budget shall be considered for final adoption at the board's regular meeting to be held on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. The final public hearing for the proposed final general fund budget will take place on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. via a Zoom meeting similar to the current board meeting format. Note, the above proposed final general fund budget amount will continue and will be updated as applicable prior to the final public hearing, as well as prior to the June study session and the June regular board meeting. The proposed final general fund budget is currently required to be balanced through utilization of unassigned fund balance to eliminate a remaining deficit amount of $1,678,000 after an included real estate tax millage increase of 0.7259 mils or 3.6% greater than the current millage rate of 20.1655 mils. Thus, the new millage rate would be 20.8914 mils. Additional expenditure reductions, additional revenue adjustments, and or the utilization of unassigned fund balance may all be required in some combination to balance the final general fund budget. The adoption and the placement on public display of the district's proposed final general fund budget is a requirement of Special Session Act 1 of 2006. The approval of the above resolution does not set a final general fund budget amount and does not set a final real estate tax millage rate for the 21-22 fiscal year. And just one thing I wanted to note, just along the lines of that, we have done this previously as action items, and this is primarily the result of the scheduling of the meetings and the requirement of having a 30 days in between the adoption of the proposed final budget and the adoption of the final budget, and along the way with the required final public hearing as well for that. So that's the reason why it is on for an action item this evening. Item number 2 is approval of the IDEA Part B use of funds sub-grant agreement with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit number 3 for the 21-22 fiscal year. That is depicted in Exhibit A. This is an annual resolution that we bring forward, as well as its corresponding resolution, item number 3, which is the approval of Attachment A, Notice of Adoption of Policies, Procedures, and Use of Funds by School District of the Allegheny Intermediate Unit number 3, IDEA Part B for the 21-22 fiscal year, and that's depicted in Exhibit B. Final item for action this evening is item number 4, approve the district's utilization of Build America Mutual Assurance Company to serve as the district's municipal bond insurer for the upcoming issuance of the district's general obligation bonds series of 2021, which are financing the district's Gateway Middle School renovation project and several other capital repair improvement projects throughout the district. Note, the above estimated fee is $85,349 and is based on 0.134% of the total estimated principal and interest of the bonds to be issued by the district. The total actual fee will be calculated and paid at bond closing by the district once the actual principal and interest of the bonds have been determined. The district's current bond rating of A1 will be enhanced to AA rating through the utilization of Build America Mutual Assurance Company, serving as the district's municipal bond insurer. The reason why we wanted to add this evening is to get this approved is that we're very close, and actually the sale of the bonds could be initiated as early as next Wednesday or Thursday, based on some additional work myself and some of the individuals at Piper Sandler, our district's bond writer, will be attempting to complete this week. So again, that's the reason why that we are bringing that forward as an action item this evening.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mrs. Sarucci. Do we have any questions or comments on the action item part of section F? None at all. Very well then, Mrs. Eastro, are you ready for roll call vote?
Yes. Mrs. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre,
Aye.
Ms. Mungo,
Aye.
Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
and Mrs. Sarucci.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All righty, now we move on to the other half of section F, the items for discussion. Once again, Dr. Short.
Thank you, Mr. Gottman. If we could move to elementary education, Dr. Ross.
Item number 1 is approval of the purchase from my perspective and execute the associated agreements. Publisher. Item number 2 is approve the participate in the school consent form to participate in the SORA Public Library Connect program.
Item number 3, appointment of school board secretary. Item number 4, approval of appointment of school board treasurer for the 21-22 fiscal year. Item number 5, waterfront learning credit recovery program. Approve the waterfront learning credit recovery program at a cost of $260 per student.
Item number 6, approve the continued appointment of Richard M. Alfeltar Jr., DMD, as a district school dentist for the 21-22 fiscal year at the rate of $5 per student dental examination. Note that Dr. Alfeltar will continue to perform the applicable student dental examination services at no increase in price to the district for the 21-22 fiscal year. Item number 7, approve in accordance with section 621 of the Pennsylvania School Code, the continued designation of PNC Bank Miracle Mile office as the district's depository of funds for a 1-year period from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Item number 8, approve in accordance with section 440.1 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code, the continued investment of district funds with one or more of the following financial institutions: PNC Bank, the Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund, or PSLAF, and any other appropriate FDIC-insured financial institution not specifically listed above, in accordance with the collateralization requirements established by the Pennsylvania School Code during the period from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Item number 9, approve the 21-22 fiscal year operating and administrative budgets for the Forbes Road Career and Technology Center in the amounts of operating budget $6,783,172, which represents zero change or 0%, neither an increase nor a decrease from the current year, as well as administrative budget in the amount of $144,757, which as well represents no change from the current 2021 fiscal year. Note, the district's portion of administrative budget for the 21-22 fiscal year is projected to be $34,054.63. The total combined 21-22 fiscal year budget is $6,927,929, and again represents no change of $0 or 0% from the total combined 2021 fiscal year budget as depicted in Exhibit A. Item number 10, approve the renewals and applicable premium payments for the following district insurance coverage policies for the 21-22 fiscal year as depicted below. Item number 11, award the milk and dairy vendor product bid for the milk services and related food items to Turner Dairy Farms Incorporated for the district's food service department during the 21-22 fiscal year and as depicted in Exhibit B. Item number 12, award the bread and bakery vendor product bid for the bread services and the related bakery food items to Nichols Bakery for the district's food service department during the 21-22 fiscal year and as depicted in Exhibit C. Item number 13, approve the district's purchases and payments for the following department items during the 2021 fiscal year, specifically business office through the safety committee, the purchase through Sheffey Company of 7 Mako MA-27E audiometers with carrying case and software in the amount of $7,170. Note that the above items will be purchased and paid for during the 2021 fiscal year instead of during the 21-22 fiscal year to reduce expenditures in the 21-22 fiscal year general fund budget. Additional purchases may be presented for board consideration and approval at the June board meetings. Item number 14, authorize the superintendent with the authority on behalf of the district to approve select types of change orders up to $50,000 in cost associated with the Gateway Middle School renovation project that are time sensitive and could negatively affect the critical path of the project by adding required time to the established schedule for completion during the 21-22 and 22-23 fiscal years. Note, the board will still be required to officially review and approve all addition and deletion change orders for the Gateway Middle School renovation project prior to any contractor payment adjustments being officially initiated. Item number 15, approve the advertisement of the district's bid for the paving of the new library field band practice area during the 21-22 and the 22-23 fiscal year. Item number 16, approve the agreement for the purchase and installation of new LED retrofit lights, no new light poles, for the high school stadium instructional field in the amount of $278,606, and the new LED lights and new light poles for the Gateway High School Sports Complex baseball and softball fields in the amount of $596,196 with Musco Sports Lighting LLC in the approximate total amount of $874,802 through the Keystone Purchasing Network pre-bid purchasing agreement as depicted in Exhibit D. Please note, the board previously approved the formal commitment with Musco Sports Lighting LLC for the per unit pricing amounts during the April 27th, 2021 regular board meeting associated with each of these new LED light projects. Item number 17, approve the extension of the agreement for professional services with Eads Group Incorporated for engineering services in a retainer amount of $150 per month, $1,800 total for one fiscal year, and other engineering services as required beyond the retainer services at the average hourly rates in effect at the time the services incurred, including applicable reimbursable expenses during the 21-22 fiscal year, and as depicted in Exhibit E. Please note there is no increase in retainer amount to the district for the 21-22 fiscal year. Item number 18, approve the agreement for professional sports architecture services with JT Sauer and Associates LLC in the maximum amount of $235,710 for the professional services associated with all required phases to install 2 new artificial turf athletic fields consisting of baseball and softball at the Gateway High School Sports Complex, a new artificial turf athletic field multi-purpose at the Gateway Middle School, an artificial turf infield baseball at the Gateway Middle School, and the conversion of the library field to a band practice area as depicted in Exhibit F. Item number 19, approve the agreement for the purchase and installation of new artificial turf for high school stadium instructional field, the Gateway High School Sports Complex baseball and softball fields, and the Gateway Middle School multi-purpose field and baseball infield with Shaw Sports Turf in the approximate amount of $2,691,376 through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Group as depicted in Exhibit G. Please note, the board previously approved the formal commitment of Shaw Sports Turf for the per unit pricing amounts during the April 27, 2021 regular board meeting associated with each of these new artificial turf field projects. Item number 20, approve the agreement for the rental of 10 modular classroom units from Will Scott in the total amount of $413,843.82 through the Omnia Partners competitively bid contract during the duration of the Gateway Middle School renovation project as depicted in Exhibit H. Please note, the above fee includes delivery, setup, monthly rental, as well as the tear down and removal of the modular classrooms at the conclusion of the district's rental. Item number 21, approve the continuation of the purge or records disposal service agreement with Stericycle/Shred-It for the secure collection and offsite disposal of district records in the estimated quantities and at the associated container unit prices as indicated in the purge service agreement for the 21-22 fiscal year as depicted in Exhibit I. Please note the actual collection and disposal of district records will take place in July 2021 on a mutually agreed upon date or dates as applicable. The administration offices in the high school typically serve as the separate pickup points for district records disposal. Item number 22, approve a payment to the municipality of Monroeville in the maximum amount of $207,404.20, representing the required building permit and review fees charged for the Gateway Middle School renovation project. Please note, the board previously approved the fee at a not to exceed amount of $75,000 during the March 16, 2021 regular board meeting, based on a previously calculated fee estimate. However, the actual fee calculated by the municipality of Monroeville was substantially greater than the estimate. The fee is in addition to the other 2 fees previously paid by the district to the municipality of Monroeville, required to begin the project review process, specifically a fee in the amount of $5,150 for a planning commission application for land development and subdivision, and a fee in the amount of $100 for an application for building permit and plan examination. Also, please note that the district is attempting to contact the municipality of Monroeville to review this amount and to determine the contents, the exact contents of how this exact new amount was calculated from the municipality of Monroeville.
All right, take a breather there, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, sir. I will.
All right, I'm sure we have questions on section F.
Yeah, that 22 was a big smack in the face from our municipality. I would like to just call on our council and our mayor to waive the building permit fees because these are the same taxpayers. The taxpayers that pay into the municipality are the taxpayers that pay into the school district. So by slamming us with these additional building permit fees, it's really only hurting the same taxpayers that we all represent. So I'm going to publicly just call upon our council and mayor to please do something to reduce the required building permit fees that you're charging for this high school renovation project. That's all I got.
I do know that Mr. Brown and probably Mr. Tasek have begun examining these fees, how they originated, and we'll be able to report back by next week our findings.
I'm very anxious to see that,
that
finding there, because that's a massive difference. All right, does anybody have any questions on section F?
Yeah, if I may, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Paul, what's the total amount then, like all in right now that we'd be paying to the municipality for these permits and applications?
That would be, assuming this is the amount that's shown here at the 207,000, 212, about almost 213,000 total would be the grand total if we would pay this amount as it sits here in the resolution.
That's $213,000 we'd be paying to the municipality to sign it, to basically for to sign a piece of paper.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Gallagher.
On number 15, not sure what Ms. Brown, what is the process that we're going through with the project manager, Ms. Brown being in that position? Do those change orders go through? How do they get to you to finally okay?
Yeah, typically what happens, Doug with Foreman will be overseeing the project. Mr. Brown will be right there as well, including the architect. We do have the principal, Mr. Jack, on site as well at various times. But if there is a need for a change order, and that's why this is reflected in the artifact here, not to exceed $50,000, and it requires immediate action. They would, of course, notify me. I would be directly involved with the board president, vice president, notify the entire board. Pretty much authorization to move forward so it doesn't impact perhaps a delay in the project, which could cost money, et cetera, and then move forward. Then we would have it on for the voting agenda the following week.
I was just wondering the process, because I figured it would go through.
Yep.
The change before it got to you, so you didn't have to get it before you got it.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Ritter, do you have any questions?
Sure, I'm trying to go back to get the details of many of these improvements that Bob Brown and his team are going to be doing over the district over the next couple of weeks, months. And so I think if you go back to some of the buildings and grounds meetings that were recorded that are out there on the Gateway District's website, you can get the details behind all these discussions. For example, what is the turf, what the lighting upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. So all those details are out there. I don't know that we need to actually go into a rehashing of all that. We've been meeting regularly to discuss these and get the best prices and to lay out all the protocols, et cetera. So if the public's interested in that, just go out to the Gateway District website, look up the YouTube videos, and you can replay that. Is that an easy way out of this, Bob, rather than to have you rehash?
Yes.
Thanks. And Mr. Ritter, if I could just comment, I believe you were asking about earlier the upgrade in the lighting with the LED lighting. And those of you who've had an opportunity over the last couple of years to be on our field during our nighttime activities, whether or not that may be a band competition, soccer, football, the lights over time have definitely caused some issues with the brightness and the times where lights have been out. So this would be a significant upgrade to what we have, and of course the cost savings as well over time. That's all I have.
Bob is shaking his head.
He agrees.
Agreed. Thanks, Brian.
Bob doesn't have to climb the pole any longer. Change the lights.
All right, I have a question. It's a combination with 18 and 19. So 19, yes, yeah, we did approve for Shaw to redo the fields here. Frankly, with 18, so I see we're both replacing the infield for the baseball field at the Gateway Middle School. And anybody, please, inform me on what's going on here. Why are we utilizing the architecture people in 18 when we already approved to pay for 19? I mean, it's a baseball field.
They are two separate items. Item number 18 is the approval of the sports architecture firm to do all the stormwater management planning, the meetings. So they actually are similar to the architect of our project. 19 is the purchase of the turf for that project. So that's the difference between them.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we have any other questions on section F before we move on? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to section G. Resolutions presented by board members. Tonight we have two, so we're going to do one at a time. Number one, I believe is Mr. McIntyre's. Mr. McIntyre, are you able to read this one, or do you need me to?
If you could read that for me, Brian, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay. So number one is equity director. Whereas the Gateway School District is committed to equity as it is essential in fulfilling the mission statement of the district. And whereas the well-established achievement gap is one of many hurdles on the path to equity. And whereas the current pandemic has had a profound effect on the achievement of all Gateway students, it is our obligation to ensure that the gains made in recent years towards closing the achievement gap are not lost, or worse, that the gap widens as a result of the pandemic. Therefore, let it be resolved on this 19th day of May of 2021 that the Gateway Board of School Directors directs the superintendent's office to create a full-time equity director position within central administration and hire a qualified candidate to a 4-year contract. Do you have any questions or comments on number one?
Sure.
Yes.
So Rick, is this coming from you, or is this an administrative recommendation?
This is a board member resolution.
Okay. Have you been in discussions with administration about this position?
Multiple times over the last 5 years, yes.
Okay, but at this time, administration is not recommending this position, just to be clear for the public.
I think that would be a question for administration.
Okay, is administration recommending this position right now, Bill? Dr.
At
Short?
this time, we would not be recommending that position. We do have staffing upcoming at a budget meeting. That is when we would be evaluating any potential hires or additional positions.
So we have an upcoming staffing meeting when?
We do on June
1st. June 1st.
right here at the LGI at 6 o'clock.
And you'll be sharing at that time administration's recommendations and
Administrative
budgeting.
recommendations for the 2021-22 school year with positions that would be added with the use of the ESSER's money and also reflecting the needs of staffing as far as student interest and schedules.
Do we have a job description for the public for this position or salary?
We do not at this time. We've had some previous job descriptions with the equity director hired several years ago that we could reference if needed.
And maybe this question goes back to Mr. McIntyre. I don't know. Can you identify any current deficiencies in our program that are requiring you to make this change?
No.
Can you explain how?
As far as performance by our administration, absolutely not.
So you're saying publicly our administration is doing a good job?
Yes.
Can you explain how a full-time administrator will then solve a problem that you have not actually identified?
Well, I think the problem is laid out in the resolution. The problem still exists. The problem is the opportunity gap. And while I absolutely applaud our administration, Dr. Chakey in particular, for his efforts over the last several years in working with equity and improving our performance in relation to the opportunity gap, I believe there's still a lot of improvement to be made. I think Dr. Short would agree that we still have a long way to go. And I believe that Dr. Chakey and the equity committee and all of the faculty and staff and the principals and everybody that's been a part of our efforts in reducing the opportunity gap have laid a fantastic groundwork. I think we have good systems in place, and I believe that we've set it up to where if we have a full-time equity director come in, and that's his sole focus is to run that ship and to make sure that all things are going through the lens of equity, I believe we can do even better than we are currently doing.
Do you have any examples of school districts that you can put forth that would give evidence that a full-time equity director has indeed closed the opportunity gap?
I don't have that data in front of me now.
Okay. Do you have any evidence that that would be remedied in the 4 years that you're putting on to this position?
I mean, 4 years is, I would believe, a starting point. I believe we can make enough gains and gain enough ground there to go back to being a self-sustaining program given we hire the proper equity director, I think we can make a tremendous amount of progress in 4 years with somebody solely focused on that project.
So are you basing a 4-year contract then on another school's contract, or how did you come up with a 4-year? Is that more of just a contractual decision?
It's more of I don't like to, as you know, we don't like to forecast budgets and contracts too far into the future. I think at the end of that 4 years, whoever the makeup of the board is at that time would have the decision to make to continue the relationship with that equity director, or decide that it's no longer needed or that it's no longer viable.
How many complaints have there been this year from students or families that they were not adequately handled in regards to equity?
I don't know if I would have that. I don't get every complaint that comes to the district. I don't believe you either. You do either.
Dr. Chapin,
I do know that I've had a number of parents reach out to me, and I believe Mrs. Delaney can speak on that as well.
Dr. Chakey or Dr. Short, do we have any complaints that have been unaddressed in regards to our equity this year?
No, I think the way that we have it set up is, you know, with the GSD Equity Committee, a lot of the members, well, all of the members are within the schools. So they hear from the ground floor there, whether it's an issue within the community or whether it's a parental issue, and they'll bring it to the committee and we make sure that it gets resolved in a timely manner.
And do you set annual goals for your committee?
Yes.
Have you evaluated those goals this year yet? I mean, we're not quite to the end and it's been a tough year.
Yeah, as part of the equity policy, at the end of the year, we'll make a presentation on some of the goals throughout the year,
And how you've done with those. And that'll be
Yes.
at the end of the school year?
end of the school year.
All right. When's the last time that we were able to actually evaluate the school performance of our students? All of them? Without the,
You really have to go back almost 2 years ago with some test data that was distributed through the Department of Education. Due to COVID, the shutdown, of course, they waived the exam last year. They are administering the test this year, PSSA and Keystone. However, there remains several options that parents have taken advantage of with opt-outs due to online or gate programming. So I would be comfortable saying that it could be another 2 years, maybe 3, until we have data that reflects where we were as far as being on cycle every year to evaluate and determine the needs moving forward with children.
did you just say you don't actually think we'll be able to evaluate our students' performance for 2 to 3 years?
We anticipate some data next year, but it doesn't provide us with the full picture, understanding that there has been that learning loss. So the state recognizes that. But then recently, there has been an article and some information about the Pennsylvania Senate putting together, I believe, a bill that would allow parents to hold their child back. And just receiving information about that and hearing about it at the IU level, there's a lot of questions, more questions than answers at this point concerning that. So that's another issue that could impact state testing and data and scores.
All right. I guess the last question then I have, Mr. McIntyre, would be for transparency's sake, why hasn't the community been afforded the answers to all of the questions I just asked before voting on this next week and agreeing to spend $500,000 in salaries and benefits before we even have our discussion on social workers, counselors at our June 1st budget and personnel meeting?
I think we just answered the questions you asked, if I'm not mistaken. If you have more, I'm more than happy to try and answer.
The community doesn't have a job description. It doesn't have any data showing how this position is going to improve. It doesn't have any goals. We have no data of our students currently, how they're performing to even know if there's deficiencies. You can't identify any deficiencies in the current program, but you're asking me as a board member to vote next week on a position that's going to cost the school district and the taxpayers $500,000 in salaries and benefits.
I don't know where you're getting $500,000 from, but that may be right, that may not be right, but
Well,
the vote next week, with the
6
vote
years
next
ago,
week, the vote next week would spend exactly $0 of taxpayer money. The vote to actually spend the money would come later when we have a candidate presented.
so how do you actually approve a position and then say it doesn't cost any money?
I didn't say that. I said the vote next week will spend no money. The
Well,
vote to spend money comes later when we have the qualified candidate.
technically, but if we vote to hire a person, I think there's an assumption that there's going to be a cost
We're not
associated with
voting to
that.
hire a person, we're voting to direct the superintendent's office to recommend a hire. We actually vote on the hire later.
So
In
you're-
the meantime,
you're voting to tell
the
a board to
purpose
recommend something
of
he
this
hasn't recommended.
resolution, the purpose of this resolution is to direct our administration to formulate the job description, seek out qualified candidates, and present somebody to the board for approval. We do not have a finalized job description for this resolution as of yet, but as we discussed earlier, we do have a pretty solid template from a previous board approved resolution to hire a full-time equity director. And I believe, I'm confident that given enough time, we can get the job description in place with board input, find a qualified candidate, decide on a salary, and hire them and get them in, hopefully before the beginning of the next school year.
I would say if that's your intent, Mr. McIntyre, that we should be voting on this at that time when we have the job description, when we have the recommendations from the administrators, and when we have the salary requirements. When I was on
We will be.
committee 6 years ago, this position was proposed 6 years ago at $125,000 salary per year plus salaries and benefits. And that was 6 years ago. That's where I'm getting, you asked how I got $500,000. That's where I got my $500,000 estimate. Because 6 years ago, it was suggested that we hire a full-time equity director at $125,000 per year.
As a cap, yes, and I believe we ended up spending $30,000 a year on that.
Right.
Because the board voted on the actual money when it was time to do the hiring.
At the time, we hired a part-time equity director. Is it still true that there's an equity director going to be available to us, Dr. Short, through the AIU?
That is correct. They recently hired an equity director to oversee the development of equity programs throughout Allegheny County and the IU.
And is it common for school districts to have combined positions like we do at Gateway, where an assistant superintendent also serves as an equity director? Or do you know of any other schools that have full-time equity directors, like how big they are?
The only school districts that I'm aware of that are much larger than us, it would be Philadelphia Public School System, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg. Larger school districts tend to have someone full-time within their departments.
By larger, how big is Philadelphia School District?
Could be 15, 20,000 students
I think it's a couple 100,000.
or more.
Harrisburg and Pittsburgh, I think, are around 15. What about the AIU equity director? Will there be a fee for us to use that person?
No,
Is it covered in the fee that we already pay the AIU?
yes.
You have any idea like how many hours that person could work for us, or is that kind of to be determined still?
It's a basically call. I mean, if we need advice, need input, information, they're available.
Is that someone that could actually come to the district and attend meetings with our staff or do trainings as
They
well?
already have
They've already been here? Okay.
attended meetings.
Bill, how many districts are in the AIU?
I want to say 42.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
All right, yes, Ms. Ritter.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. You're able to hear me okay, Rick?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I have to keep unmuting and muting.
Okay, I'll just go on for a little while here and then you can unmute and kick back some responses. So the proposition here is, it says, whereas the Gateway School District is committed to equity as it is essential in fulfilling the mission statement of the district. So the one of the propositions is that we need to be committed to equity as it is essential. I've got the mission statement here and it has 6 extraneous double spaces in it. I say that because I'm quite picky with words. So it says the mission statement of the Gateway School District, in cooperation with the parents and other members of the community, is to provide quality education opportunities. And it doesn't say it's to provide quality educational equity. So it uses the word opportunities, is to provide quality educational opportunities for all students to promote academic excellence in a safe and caring environment, to enhance self-confidence through personal responsibility, and develop lifelong learners who will be productive citizens in a diverse and changing world. So one of the goals is to provide quality educational opportunities. However, your proposition says the Gateway School District is committed to equity. I don't know that it's committed to equity. I think equity is an ingredient, but I don't know what equity means. And what I mean by that is I think it's opportunity. So it's the next section of your proposition is, and whereas the well-established achievement gap is one of the many hurdles in the path to equity. So, and then you go on to say, and whereas the current pandemic has had a profound effect on the achievement of all Gateway students. So you're making 3 propositions in order to make a summation and to propose an equity director here. But you use the word equity, achievement gap, and achievement gap, and then you go on to say, it's our obligation to ensure the gains made in recent years towards closing the achievement gap are not lost, or worse, that the gap widens as the result of the pandemic. However, one of the profound effects on the achievement is that some students have performed better at home, and some students have performed the same, and some students have performed worse. So I contend with one of your propositions that it has a profound effect on the achievement of Gateway students. So what I'm saying is, this is not a well-formed set of propositions. The other is, when Mrs. Cerrucci was questioning you about a few things, you said the problem is the opportunity gap 3 times. The problem is the opportunity gap, the opportunity gap. And yet your statement here uses the words achievement gap 3 times. So what is it? Is it an achievement gap, or is it an opportunity gap? Is it an achievement gap, or is it an opportunity gap? Is equity involved with opportunity or achievement? In other words, since you haven't settled on the definition of these terms, I am unable to know whether I am in favor, neutral, or opposed to the creation of an equity director. So you see my conundrum here. Now, there was an achievement gap committee that was formed a few years ago, and I had some questions about that, and I emptied a red pen asking many of these same questions in this book that I have brought many times to these board meetings. And none of the board members have yet to take the time to look at the questions I have regarding the definition of achievement gap versus opportunity gap. So how can I, in good conscience as a board member, vote either for, against, or abstain on a word that has not yet been well defined? Now, many people have attempted to define it for themselves, and they believe that they are clear in their minds, but I am not them, I am me. It needs to be clear to me. So those are the concerns that I have with this. Now, if you're asking the question, do the students need some help? If we use a term like that, I would say definitely yes. I would say I would be in favor of creating a student excellence framework position that might include and help assist Drs. Chakey, Dr. Rossi, and Dr. Short in trying to make Gateway a place of excellence for all the students and grant them as many opportunities as we can possibly do. So I'm in favor of that. But to create an equity director position, I don't know what, I'm not trying to be obstinate on this. I truly, in my conscience, don't understand what those words mean. And even the people who explain it to me confuse the term equity and opportunity in their speech. So I think they're not clear in what they're asserting. Now, I understand that people will be angry at me for this and prefer that I just listen more, but I am not one who does not listen. I listen very, very intently, and I take notes on everything. So I'm trying to be as clear as I can to say, I don't understand this. So how can I, in good conscience, support it? So those are my questions, Rick. And that's not to say that I don't appreciate your effort and all the efforts of the school board members and all the teachers and the parents to do bend over backwards with taxes and, doing everything they can to try to help every kid in every situation. I'm not disavowing that or not acknowledging that. I'm saying we are doing some things well, and we need to sustain that and pat ourselves on the back and continue to do that and excel at it. Not to say that we're failing at it when we're not truly failing. I think we're making good progress. How am I wrong? I think you're doing a good job, Rick. How am I wrong? I want to perfect the way that we all behave towards each other and towards the teachers here and say that they're doing a very, very good job, and how can we do better? So that's the tenor that I'm trying to bring to this discussion here. So please don't think that I'm being antagonistic. I'm being confused.
John, I don't take any of your questions or comments as antagonistic. I don't know if people are going to be mad at you for anything you've said. I certainly am not. And I will speak in defense of you. I believe your questions are coming from the purest of places. I think you're genuinely just trying to educate yourself on the subject. And I applaud you for doing that, knowing that you're going to possibly get backlash for doing it. So I applaud you for that, John. If I can go back to what you started with, was the beginning of my resolution in reference to the try to think of the word, the mission statement of the district. Again, it's about, if you could read the first part of the mission statement again.
Sure. The mission of the Gateway School District, in cooperation with parents and other members of the community, is to provide quality educational opportunities for X, Y, and Z.
And that section of it ends with for all students.
Bingo. Yeah, for all students. Right.
That is where the term equity becomes essential to achieving that mission statement and fulfilling that mission statement, I should say.
Very good.
If all of these students aren't getting the same opportunities at the start, then we are not fulfilling our duties to fulfill that mission statement. As far as my use of the word achievement gap versus opportunity gap, I do apologize for that confusion and the wordplay, if you will. My familiarity with the subject, as I'm sure yours was, with the achievement gap committee and everything, the achievement gap was the phrase being used. It's still essentially the same problem from the same data sets. However, the preferred terminology, as Mrs. Delaney pointed out to me recently, is opportunity gap. And I believe the reason for that change is it changes the lens. The focus isn't necessarily on the end result is the achievement. But maybe by then it's too late. We need to look at the start, which is the opportunity.
Right. The actual report, the first 2/3 of the book talks about the achievement gap. The last 1/3 of the set of documents talks about the opportunity gap. So even the report itself uses both sets of terms.
I understand. And like I said, I've been using the term achievement gap. I was instructed that the terminology now is opportunity gap. So I'm just trying to correct my language when discussing the terminology to what is the current usage.
Very good.
Can I interject in there, Rick, just to kind of.
Please do. I was hoping you would.
Several equity, as we want to call it, equity meetings and all with University of Pitt, who has been doing a phenomenal job in terms of their, what we call DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the reason that term became opportunity gap as opposed to achievement gap, because they were looking at particularly a lot of the individual families, a lot of the ones that did not get sometimes the same start, whether it's a preschool start, parents could not afford it, parents were working. So many kids started out already behind. They didn't have the same opportunities. And when you don't have the same opportunities, then, as you say, that would lead to, therefore, the achievement gap. So that's why I think they started changing the terminology, because they started to look at all the variables which cause that particular gap, whether it's achievement or opportunity, but that was a gap there. And it shouldn't be, because we want to look at excellence for all Gateway students. And we can't do that if we have some that are lagging behind. So what opportunities can we offer them so that they can be achieving at the same excellent level of other students? And as Dr. Short said, you know, we've addressed a lot of the times the transient cases of students coming in and out from other districts where they were already behind. And that's where we wanted to continue to focus on, and to do that so that we don't have some students that just don't meet up to where everyone else is, because it only pulls the district down. It's been proven data that when you have all your students excelling, your district as a whole is going to excel.
You said that really, really, you should consider being a teacher. Really clear. I say that for people who don't know. She is a teacher. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher.
Also, I wanted to thank Mr. River for instructions and Mr. Ritchie. To answer some of those, prior to my being on the board, I met with you at Panera to go through the book and try to help answer some of those questions. So, although it's true that a board member hasn't done that, prior to that, we met and had a conversation. I also want to refer us back to August 18th, 2020, when we approved our equity policy. And I do believe this was a unanimous vote. The Gateway School Board declares it to be the policy of our district to ensure that all students are provided with an opportunity to fully maximize their overall potential through engagement of all aspects of the school district's educational programming. Specifically, the Gateway School Board acknowledges that our students, their families, and friends may have experienced discrimination in its many forms. The board believes that each and every student matters, and that the educational outcomes should never be predictable by any individual or by any individual's actual or perceived physical characteristics. This is why I'm getting new glasses. The board will remain committed to ensuring that all staff will be culturally proficient, embrace the concept of educational equity, and consistently work towards eliminating the racial achievement gap. And then it continues on with how we're going to do that and the expectations for doing that. So I do believe that in this particular resolution, we're speaking directly to policy 802 that was approved August 18th, 2020, and attaches it to the mission statement of the district. And I think that sometimes with any organization, we can approve policies, set things, and then lose sight of our commitment. Notice how many times in that policy that we all approved said the board would do this. The board would do this to ensure that this is happening. So I just refer us back to that as we're taking this under consideration. So that's just, I think that the tie that Mr. McIntyre had in the mission statement and our commitment to equity. So So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But.
Can I just clarify? I don't want anybody to think that because I may not support a full-time equity director, that I don't support the policy. And that's a big problem that nobody should think that any of us don't agree. I agree with everything Susan said. I agree with everything you said about kids who don't have preschool, don't have the same opportunities as kids who did, and therefore their achievement suffers. That was beautifully stated. I agree with everything you said. Wholeheartedly agree with our equity policy. What we're asking you to do is prove that a full-time equity director is going to change that versus the current program we have with an equity team. So please don't assume or think, anybody out there who's listening, that because we're questioning the full-time position of a $125,000 administrator does not mean that we don't support the equity policy. I just want to go on record as saying I fully support that equity policy that you just read.
I apologize if I was just answering John's question, the connection to
But it's
resolution.
easy for people to get off track.
Right,
Just like when
yeah.
Rick said, he's going to take backlash for asking questions. Why? Why should anybody in this room take any questions or backlash for asking questions about justifying this position and having data and facts to back up why we're making a change and why you want the position? Nobody should have backlash for that.
Right.
It should be honest and open discussion. And Reverend Gallagher one time said something very wise to me. You said, we all want what's in the best interest of our students. We just often have different views on how we get there.
And I think the backlash often comes from lack of understanding. And that's, as you said, everyone has different opinions, but we do all want the best for the students. And we should not take it personally if we do get backlash.
Dr. Chaky, out of curiosity, when you have your meetings, your discussions, is there any once that the equity committee is not receiving? Are things being addressed as what you're looking into, what they're, what's being done?
I can't say with 100% certainty that everything that people have brought up that we've done, but we have made a lot of progress. I mean, as far as I know, most of the things that have been brought up recently, we've instilled within the district. We want to listen to committee members because each school is unique within the district. There's different issues, different things that are causing a dynamic in each school. So we take the information from teachers and from people that are within the school, and we do our best to make sure that we take care of any issue immediately.
Thank you.
And can I add, and I know I've said this and stated it more than one time, what efforts are being made to increase the number of African-American students in AIM programs and AP programs, and what efforts are being made to increase the numbers of African-American teachers in our Gateway School District.
We constantly discuss child find incidents and wanting to evaluate students for whatever programs that can be afforded to them. As far as the AP and honors track, there has been a concerted effort. In our high school, I do know that our counselors have been very attentive to the needs of the children, trying to encourage them to always take advantage of our strong honors and AP courses. And when doing so, to also take the exam, because I think that's important as well. Not just to be in the course, but also to follow through with the opportunity to take the test. As far as hiring practices, it's something that the district and I know Mrs. Crump, we talked about internally that it's difficult for the district to go out and necessarily say that we're looking for an individual to hire, because we do know that there are certain legalities surrounding that. But we always maintain that the best educator, the best teacher. Doesn't necessarily have to be that individual that's a 4.2 average coming out of college or university. We do know that there is a science and there's an art to teaching. You have to be able to connect with students. You have to be able to ensure that they trust you as an educator. And once you have that, regardless of color, education can happen. I do agree with you that it is important for all of our children to at least see someone that reflects themselves in the building in those opportunities as instructors or administrators, so that they do know that it is equitable and inclusive for everyone.
All right, do we have any other questions on number 1?
I think, had a few unfielded questions or unanswered questions from Mr. Ritter, if I'm not mistaken. John, you touched on the third section of my resolution, dealing with the profound effect on the achievement of all Gateway students. And while, as we established today, we don't have good, solid data, I would ask Dr. Short, is it safe to assume that we have significant learning loss as a result of the effects of the pandemic?
I would be comfortable in saying that we do have learning loss, to use the word significant. I'm not sure that we have that data yet.
I think that's fair.
We will be able to have concrete data, what we anticipate at the start of the next school year, when we effectively diagnostically test our kids.
In looking at that and not knowing what that loss is, I'm of the opinion of, or of the practice of plan for the worst and hope for the best type of a thing. So I think, moving forward, I think the three of you would agree that we have to account for, a significant, or however you want to qualify it, but some level of learning loss. And we're kind of flying a little bit blind without, some of the data to assess it right away. So I guess my point is, we have to try to account for the worst and account for, a decent amount of learning loss and be able to recover that as quickly as possible.
I'm just going to add that I believe this summer we're planning on summer classes, Gatorade, whatever we're doing to try to help the learning loss these kids have endured. Am I correct in stating that?
That is correct.
And Mr. Chakey, would you say that equity is an important element of that summer program?
I think equity is an important element of any learning. So definitely.
So Rick,
I think I agree. I definitely agree with that.
So based on your plan for the worst, hope for the best comment, is that what you're saying is why you're putting the position on the agenda now?
That is part of the reason for putting it on the agenda, yes.
So
timing wise,
I could make a motion today then to hire 5 social workers and 2 counselors too, because I want to hope for the best but plan for the worst.
you're free to make any resolution you wish. You are a board member. My reason for putting it on now, I originally had this on the agenda for last month. And my reasoning behind trying to get this done early rather than later is to give our administration as much time as possible to formulate a good and coherent and effective job description, and to be able to exhaust all resources in finding a qualified candidate in a timely fashion, with the hopes of getting somebody hired for the beginning of the next school year.
I think that's what our budget and staffing meeting's for, June 1st.
Yeah, and again, we're not hiring somebody tonight. We're creating a position. We are creating a job description to search for a candidate to recommend to the board to then make the decision to hire. I believe that if we look at the previous job description, we can build upon that. I think if we look at other districts, maybe not around us, but certainly around the country, there are districts that have full-time equity directors. Keep in mind, when we hired a part-time equity director, nobody or equity consultant, nobody around us had that either. But I believe that in the time, between the 19th and the beginning of the school year, that our administration can accomplish that and have a candidate with a salary, set forth, and have that opportunity to have it presented at a study session for discussion, and then an actual regular meeting to vote on the expenditure. I believe, I understand the argument about the staffing and budget meeting and the timing. I'm of the opinion that it's better to have, I think Reverend Gallagher probably said this better than I will, but to have that money accounted for before the budget. It's easier to account for it than it is to add it later. So I think it would benefit us to have this resolution either voted up or down before that budget meeting. If it's voted down, they know they don't have to account for it in the budget. If we vote it up, then they do. And they can build that into the budget meeting.
For me personally, I'd like to wait to see what their staffing recommendations are, but I do have a question on social workers. We have 2 in the district, and we have how many students? 3,300. So we basically have 1 social worker for every 1,500 students, roughly, right? What's the state recommend for social workers per student? I know it's general, it doesn't apply to every district, but they kind of give a guide, right?
Well, they give a guide, and what's been brought up before, we're making references to the state recommendations, but this is from back in 2018, October 2018. We had to fill out a survey, and then this is coming out of Act 44. And part of the survey, it went through and it talked about the different all hazards planning, and Act 44 created a school safety committee for the state. And in anticipation of them supporting each school, they sent out a survey to each district. And we had to complete this survey. And what's been referenced is one of the questions says, how is your district as far as meeting the recommendations from the federal guidelines or the federal standards for social workers? And it lists a couple positions. It first lists school psychologists, and it mentions that you should have X amount of school psychologists for students. It also goes through nurses, also goes through counselors, and with social workers. Now, according to the recommendations for social workers, there should be 1 in every building, or 1 per every 250 students. It's not a requirement from the state. It's just a recommendation from the Social Worker Association.
Can I also mention, when you were speaking of social workers, I definitely think we need more social workers. I don't know what the ratio or the numbers are. I think that the increase in social workers would help a lot of the situations and problems for all of the kids, and particularly what we're coming out of and going into. But there is a difference in what a social worker sometimes brings to the table.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
With especially with minority students, as opposed to someone who may be able to relate to that student differently. I've worked with a lot of social workers, and they are excellent at what they do, but some students, if they may not trust that social worker anymore than they do their teacher. So that's why when we look at the inclusion or the equity or the diversity in it, I think that helps all of them, the students, the teachers, parents.
Let me explain my thought process and why I asked that, because, Rick said he wanted to introduce this position to kind of be a placeholder for the budget, right? But I know that our social workers are greatly overworked, and I know that they do a lot of good. So for me, that's another area that I feel, I'm not saying that they're the same as an equity director. I'm just saying this is another area that I think is really important and that we're going to need next year. And I also feel the same way about our school counselors, because I sat in on the counselor Zoom meeting and I heard I didn't get to see the whole meeting because I had to go to work, but I heard the Gateway Middle School presenting that they needed a full-time counselor to replace one of the half-times. They're shorthanded. So I'm just wondering, and based on like Rick's line of thinking, do I need to make a motion tonight to also hire X amount of social workers and X amount of counselors? Because I care about those issues equally, and I want to make sure that there's a spot in the budget for those. And if so, how many do I recommend, that we hire? Because we haven't had the meeting yet. It's June 1st, but I don't want those to get slighted either, because I think that these are all important issues. So maybe I should make a motion tonight to hire 3 social workers and 2 counselors?
Framework person.
What?
A student success framework, what's the name? It's not a director, it's a.
Well, do you see my line of thinking? Do you see what I'm
Yeah, I
struggling
know
with
what
this?
you're-
Because those are
what you're
very
saying.
important to me.
And I
As is
agree.
equity,
Yes, I
as is
definitely agree. I know what
as
you're-
is tutors.
Yeah.
Like, we might be needing tutors to help our kids with our loss that we don't know what it is yet, and we're really not going to know it until the fall, but we're going to have to make a decision in June on our budget, but we don't have the data and we don't know exactly what the needs are. So I'm really going to trust Guy and Dennis and Bill to have worked with some estimates and try to come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan based on maybe some estimates. But also, we have limited funds. So how do we placehold for all of those other significant positions? How do we do that?
Could I make a suggestion and ask our
Can somebody answer
administrators?
that question?
Pardon me?
Can you answer that question?
No, but I was going to ask our administrators for their recommendation at the next meeting. What their thought,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, you know what the needs are.
Can
Go ahead, Rick.
I'm sorry, Vi, I didn't mean, it's difficult to tell if you're done over the phone, but I apologize for cutting you off.
No, I talk an awful lot. I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to touch on something that Mary Beth said. You're pointing to limited funds, and I agree. I think we need to be fiscally responsible and protect the taxpayer dollar. Mr. Schott, how much is currently on this agenda tonight for asked for artificial grass and turfing our athletic fields? Roughly.
I think there's probably about 3.8 covered, but that's all by bond money. It's
right, but it's
We're borrowing money to pay for that. Are you suggesting we borrow money to pay for an equity director if we don't have it in the budget?
I am not. I made no such suggestion. I'm pointing out
That's what you're implying.
that when we talk about spending $4 million on turf, nobody bats an eye. We're not having a 45-minute discussion. So if that's really the case, if that's really your objection here, I have to question it.
Honestly, my objection is that you're putting this on the agenda before the meeting. That's what I've said for hours tonight, as to why you're doing this now instead of in June after our meeting. But you.
So that we can account for it in the budget. And then.
Well, I'm getting tired of having this discussion. It's 10 to 10. I'm sure everybody else is too. So I'm just going to close and I'm not going to comment anymore, but I would like to make a motion to put on the agenda to hire at least 2 counselors and 2 more social workers. Just because I want to hold them in the place for the budget, because I know that they're going to be in there in some fashion. I don't know how, but I think they're all important and I want to make sure that they're accounted for as well. Bonnie, did you get that?
I got it.
Have to vote on.
I am not going to second that. It's a good idea. I'm not ready to second it.
Rick, we can't hear you.
You're breaking up.
You still there, Mr. McIntyre?
I can make a resolution for you seconded.
So that's what you're doing, is making a resolution about it.
Yeah.
Proposing resolution, good, that's
Yeah,
good.
just a board member resolution for
All right,
consideration for
I
next
just want,
meeting.
I just
I just want
want
it on there now so that it can be on there for next.
Brian, this came up a couple times. I just want to say a quick word about data or the absence of data. Data can be right, wrong, incorrect, outdated, or premature. We could have the presence or absence of data, and we still need to do something or be something. So data itself is not enough. A person who has wisdom, knowledge, understanding, vision, discernment, shrewdness, foresight, and experience can sometimes do great things, even when the data is wrong or absent or premature. So that's who we have here. We have some administrators, Dr. Rossi, Dr. Chapin, Dr. Short, who don't have all the data yet, and yet they're required to do something good for the district and for the students. And so I'm not going to wait for the data. I'm going to listen to your recommendations, even in the absence of data. That's all I have to say.
All right. I think for sake of time, even though we could talk about this all night, we're going to have to put an end to this. We do have a week as well before it shows up again for our regular meeting. So if any board members have any questions, please reach out to your fellow board members, administration, to get those answered. We're going to jump to number 2, which is Ms. Warnings.
Yes, this is just a follow-up from our guest speaker tonight. It's approval of memorandum of understanding with Vision to Learn for Student Vision Services to approve the MOU with Vision to Learn for Students Vision Services beginning with the 2001-2022 fiscal year and remaining in effect for subsequent fiscal years unless terminated by either party as depicted in Exhibit J. The district will not incur any direct or indirect expenditures as a result of the approval of this MOU with Vision to Learn. And that is all I have.
All right. Anyway, the presentation had a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions on this one? All right. Perfect. Yeah, we're going to skip all the reports. So motion to adjourn. Mr. Rushi, second. Mr. Williams. All in favor, say aye. Adjourn.
What did you get?